Hello and welcome to the Health Wizard podcast. I'm your host, Yelena Isolde Medici, a health and life coach. I'm so excited that you're choosing to listen to my podcast because you are choosing to make your health your priority. The Health Wizard podcast is dedicated to teaching natural, easy to implement practices that you can use to get your health on track and become the person you used to be before getting sick and the person you're dreaming of becoming again, happy, healthy, full of energy, and living a life filled with joy. Now, very quickly, before we dive into the good stuff, I want to remind you that this podcast is intended for education and entertainment purposes only. This podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice. If you have a medical condition, please seek the help of a licensed medical professional. I am not a medical doctor. I do not treat, diagnose, prescribe, or make claims outside of my areas of expertise. So by choosing to listen to the Health Wizard podcast, you take full responsibility for your own actions. And when you hear the testimonials of the people who were able to get well, realize that their outcomes depended on their effort and their specific situation. With that said, let's jump into today's episode. Please enjoy. You are battling a health condition. You have a chronic disorder or an illness that has been keeping you sick for years on end. You've already tried the doctors, the naturopaths, the osteopaths, everything that they have to offer, and you still keep going to the same people looking for them to give you different answers, even though they have not gotten you the health results that you have been wanting. The big question for any health seeker would be, can I really trust my doctors to give me the health that I want, especially given the fact that most doctors don't believe that chronic conditions can be healed or cured. Now, I know this is ironic because it is the medical community that is constantly raising funds in order to cure what seems to be incurable: thyroid issues, cancers, and other health conditions. There's always something going on, either a March for MS or a cancer cure run or something else where millions and billions of dollars are being raised. But the very industry that is looking for the cures is constantly telling us that what we are dealing with as humanity is incurable. In fact, the allopathic industry goes as far as persecuting any alternative practitioner if they find out that words cure and healing are used anywhere in marketing or their websites or just describing their patient's success. Yet it is the same people who will ask you to put your trust in them while you're trying to find a solution to your chronic condition. Now, this topic is becoming even more acutely important right now in the midst of coronavirus vaccination rollout. If you look historically, any vaccination that had been developed prior needed 5 to 10 years of testing and development. Yet, at a warp speed, pharmaceutical companies, one after another, are coming out with a vaccination that took them less than 8 months to develop. No testing, no studies, no safety approval, and now millions are lining up to receive what they're hoping to be a miracle cure. So the big question, my friend, is begging to be answered. Can we trust the medical community? Now, of course, I can give you a quick and easy answer here, but I would not be a coach if I did that. A true coach takes you through a journey of self-discovery and education so that you, the end user, can make your own educated decision of what you are wanting to do with your health. Because at the end of the day, it is not me, not your doctor, not anybody else. It is you who will be living with the outcomes of your decisions. Let's start in the 1900s. While in the 21st century, the Red Bull is a huge craze to give you energy to actually get your heart pumping and injured long term. In the 1900s, it was radioactive water that was all the rage. It was flying off the shelves and it was approved by the medical community, and it was considered to be the cure for mental illnesses, and even was considered to prevent aging because of its ability to stimulate cell activity. Radioactive water, who would have thought? Now, radium began appearing not only in water at that time, but was also infused in chocolates, contraceptives, toothpaste, and suppositories. Radium was even introduced into spas so that the spa goers could benefit from its healing properties. Up until the 1950s, heroin was regularly prescribed remedy for common cold, cough, or even a bout of diarrhea. Heroin was first synthesized by the English chemist in 1874, but didn't really emerge on the medical scene until German pharmaceutical giant Bayer, which is still in business, got a hold of it in 1898 and took advantage of the populace that was looking for a magical cure. Mercury, which has become known for its toxic effects in the dental industry, used to be found in children's chemistry sets of toys. Far from being just something fun to play with, the element was known as quicksilver and used to be used in medicine regularly. It was commonly prescribed to treat syphilis, typhoid fever, and parasites. And when it was finally understood that it was toxic and poisonous, it made its way into the dental industry, where it is still being used to this day, despite all of the research that we now know and have seen the effects of, that mercury is a very toxic and dangerous poison. Smoking was a big thing in the early 1900s. Actually, by 1940s, it was estimated that 60% of doctors were smoking and recommending smoking as a cure for all problems for everyone, including expectant mothers. Rooted back in the ancient practices, bloodletting used to be the thing that doctors used to cure their patients from a lot of diseases. Have a headache? Bleed it out. Running a fever? Drain the overheated blood. Bloodletting was as common as getting a haircut these days. By the middle 1800s, bloodletting was becoming less common as the physicians began to use leeches in order to extract what they called bad blood out of their patients. In early to mid-19th century France, upwards of 35 million medical leeches were used on an annual basis, with 5 to 6 million used annually in Paris alone. Now, bloodletting did not immediately go away. It was still used for a while. In fact, Charles II was medically bled after suffering a seizure, and none other than George Washington was drained of nearly 40% of his blood while suffering from a fever and difficulty of breathing. As we know, Washington died the next day. However, his doctor was not sued for medical malpractice because bloodletting was the practice of that day. And after all, who would question an allopathic doctor? It was none other than Freud, whose work is still being highly used in the psychiatric circles, who recommended using cocaine as a treatment for depression and sexual impotence. By the turn of the century, cocaine was used as a common medicine for things like toothaches and other common ailments. Coca leaves were also an ingredient in Coca-Cola, promoting the stimulating properties of the drug to the mainstream public. Is your infant teething? No problem, there's a miracle cure for that too. In the mid-1800s, morphine was used in soothing baby syrups to help babies through their teething trouble times. Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup was marketed as the best cure for infant woes. It was reported that the syrup sold 1.5 million bottles in 1868 alone. The two main ingredients of that syrup were morphine and alcohol, and the syrup came highly recommended by the medical doctors. Why stop there? In the 1940s, there was a wide use of a chemical, of a pesticide known as DDT. To this day, you can go on YouTube and find videos of children being sprayed with DDT to prevent them from getting attacked by mosquitoes and flies. Allied forces used this chemical to stop the spread of lice-borne typhus, which was prevalent in Italy between 1943 and 1945. In the middle of 1940s, DDT was widely used in the United States as the miracle cure for polio. An astonishing 1.34 billion tons of this chemical was sprayed across America between 1946 and 1962, and the use of it was not banned until the mid-1970s. What are some side effects of using this miracle drug? Breast cancer and other female cancers, male infertility, miscarriages and low birth weight, developmental delays, and nervous system and liver damage. Lobotomies were promoted by medical doctors as a treatment for severe mental health conditions, leaving the patients in a vegetative state. With time, however, they were promoted as a cure for everything from serious mental illness to even nervous indigestion. About 50,000 people received lobotomies in the United States between 1949 and 1952. Late 1800s and early 1900s, certain states decided that specific people were not worthy of procreating. And so was introduced forced sterilization that was in effect legal in 33 states. Over 65,000 mentally handicapped men and women were forced into sterilization. Now, mentally challenged was often determined by the doctor and the family, even on otherwise healthy individuals. In 1936, there was a well-publicized case of an heiress, Ann Cooper Hewitt, who was suing her mother in a San Francisco court for $500,000, which would be about $9 million today. What was the reason? The mother wanted to sterilize her daughter because, in her opinion, she was not worthy of procreating. But her mother did it and got away with it. And who were her accomplices? Medical doctors and the legal system. Beginning from the ancient Chinese, Roman, and Greek times up until the 20th century, arsenic was used to treat a number of ailments such as syphilis, headaches, fevers, and even blood disease. As we know now, however, inorganic arsenic can cause cancers, lesions, developmental issues, heart disease, and even death. Think that I'm taking you into some twilight zone where uneducated witches are practicing medicine, but not so, my dear friend. Everything that I mentioned up until now was prescribed by none others than the medical allopathic doctors. You can say, hey, Elena, listen, it was a long time ago. You're talking about 1800s, 1700s, 1900s, and we are living in a modern day and age. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about modern day doctors still using Botox for beauty treatments, even though we all know how dangerous those are, using other injectables and implants into otherwise healthy patients that develop chronic conditions and oftentimes even mental disorders from them. The wide use of pesticides and herbicides on the food that is going into your body and poisoning you on a regular basis. How about doctors still cutting out women's body parts as if they had any spare ones? These days, if doctors are unable to help their patients resolve endometriosis or PCOS, they often recommend hysterectomies. Why would that be? The women need those organs throughout their lifetimes. For example, if you are getting a hysterectomy and you do not keep your ovaries versus somebody who has a hysterectomy and keeps your ovaries, you would lose up to 8 years of your life by just losing your ovaries. But this is not a common piece of knowledge that doctors would share with you if you were considering a hysterectomy. As of today, we know that the medical error is the third leading cause of all deaths in America. Imagine going to a hairstylist that butchers every third haircut. They probably would never have another client in their life. Not so with medical doctors. Third leading cause of death in America, yet millions of us with chronic conditions are lining out their doors to ask them for solutions that they do not have. I've seen the outrage that people were having over COVID deaths over the last year. However, many people are not paying attention to the fact that by the latest estimate, approximately 251,000 lives are claimed annually due to medical error. And millions more are getting maimed by them so much that their life quality is destroyed. According to Forbes, the United States has the biggest healthcare industry in the world, spending approximately $3 trillion per year on health. Yet, we are now sicker than ever. The latest statistic that I read is that over 70% of people who get hospitalized with COVID or pass away from it are either extremely overweight or morbidly obese. A weight issue, something that the doctors should be educating their patients on. Rather than doing that, however, most doctors are prescribing medications one after another rather than taking their time to educate their patients on the dangers of excess weight. Imagine how many lives could have been saved in the last year alone if the doctors did their job and recommended for their patients to eat better, and get out, work out, and be out in the sun and having proper social lives as opposed to being locked down at homes where people became more obese. They're lacking essential nutrients and they're lacking the social lives that keeps us humans, the herd animals, alive on a day-to-day basis. Now, you're absolutely allowed to have your opinion on COVID and how it is being addressed. However, my prerogative today is not to pacify your emotions, but to give you hardcore facts so that you can make educated decisions once you know the truth. Now, how about this for a hardcore fact? In 2005, John Ioannidis, a professor at the Stanford School of Medicine, published an essay that revealed that most of the published medical research, in fact, is false and can be proven so within 3 to 6 months after publication. Not some of it, not little of it, most of it. And the damage happens when these studies are released into the general populace and people are making their life adjustments and their medical decisions around them, while most research outcomes and findings were driven by simply getting a grant for research. Even more astonishingly, here's another fact that only 29% of U.S. medical schools offer medical students the 25 hours of recommended nutrition education. Out of years and years of education, these people who are going to be treating you and your children are spending only 25 credit hours on nutrition education, and only 29% of all medical schools actually meet the requirement. And here's the kicker. A 2016 study in the Internal Journal of Adolescent Medicine and Health says that basic nutritional education of fourth-year medical osteopathic school graduates entering a pediatric residency program found that on average the incoming interns answered only 52% of the 18 questions correctly. Now, in my book, that is a failing grade, and in anybody's book, that is a failing grade. Yet these people are treating you and your children. Can you truly trust the medical profession to give you the cure and the healing that you're hoping for if you're struggling with a chronic condition? The medical industry supposedly was created to get the sick people healthy. Yet that has been the one thing that they cannot deliver. To this day, and for years past, medical doctors have been getting and are currently getting kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies each time they write a prescription. In 2013, ProPublica found that in just 4 years, a single doctor had made $1 million as a result of giving promotional speeches and consulting for drug companies, and 21 others made more than $500,000. Now, these are the people who are supposed to be given the cure, yet they act as talking bubbleheads for pharmaceutical companies. And of course, to no surprise, because the sole purpose of pharmaceutical companies is to make profit. I know, ignorant us, we want to think that their whole purpose is to find cures for our diseases. Now imagine if they found a cure. You give a medicine to a patient, they're cured, they go home, and now they've lost a client for the rest of their lives. That isn't in their interest. What they're interested in is keeping you alive long enough so that they can bleed you dry by giving you treatments that do not work. Or maybe they will work for a short period of time, but long term, they are not giving you a solution. And this is something a lot of the clients who come my way had experienced. If you have a thyroid condition, you are usually given a prescription by a medical doctor, such as levothyroxine or Synthroid. A few months pass by and your symptoms, seemingly improving at first, are now getting worse. So you go back to the doctor, he runs the labs, and what do they find? Your numbers are getting worse again. So what do? They increase the dosage of that medication. What happens on the next round? The same thing. And eventually when they run out of ideas, they give you something like a thyroidectomy or a radioactive iodine treatment, which basically destroys your thyroid gland forever. What happens after that? You become a permanent patient. For the rest of your life, you will be taking thyroid medications and feeling even more miserable than you did before your surgery. Okay, Elena, you're saying enough. What's the solution? If history shows us anything, is that the industry that showed its face over and over and over again cannot be trusted. In 1986, Ronald Reagan signed the National Childhood Vaccination Injury into law. This law protected not you, the consumer, not your children, from any possible injuries, but it protected the pharmaceutical companies from liabilities related to vaccines. Now, again, you're welcome to have your own opinion on vaccines. I have mine. But if you are going to be a company that can make whatever mistakes that you want and you can get away with it, there's zero liability to your mistakes. Can you be trusted to have our best interest in your mind? I don't know about you, but my answer is no, absolutely not. In 1985, it became legal for pharmaceutical companies to advertise directly to consumer. That means they can buy airspace or TV time to advertise their drugs, not to the doctors who are supposed to be educating you about the side effects and the dangers of such drugs and treatments, as I mentioned earlier on this podcast. But they can go directly to you, the consumer, and work off of your fears and concerns and send you to the doctor's office to ask for those drugs. By 1997, the Food and Drug Administration, which is supposed to be protecting the consumer, but it is not there to do that, it's protecting special interests. It eased up on a rule obligating companies to offer a detailed list of side effects in their infomercials. So right now they can go on TV and rattle off 20 seconds of possible side effects, where in reality, if you take a medication, you might be facing severe damaging side effects, including death. And I'm not even going to go into the history of pharmaceutical companies and their dark connection to the Nazi Germany and experimenting on humans and how they brought their chemicals and their experiments into America. And despite their crimes against humanity, were allowed to run pharmaceutical companies here in America. So at the end of the day, it is your responsibility, my dear friend, and my responsibility to become educated on our health, to become responsible for our health. It is your responsibility when you go to your doctor's office and he or she pushes a treatment on you to say things but no things, unless you're about to die and that is the treatment that's going to save your life, but to go home and do your own research. When they are pushing a prescription for you to take, you're going to go home, pull up a website such as drugs.com and look through all the possible side effects, interactions, and complications that you might face if you take that medication. If they push a surgery on you that you with your eyes wide open would say, hold on one moment, it will be me who is taking permanent damage to my body that will be living with it, not the doctor. So it is my responsibility to do my due diligence and to empower myself and to say, is there a better way to do this? Now, the disclaimer here, as it was in the beginning, is that it is you, the consumer, who makes the ultimate decision. There are times and cases when we need allopathic medicine. When my husband needed not one, but 3 brain surgeries, I was beyond grateful to have lived in America at that time. We had the best of surgeons, the best of medical team. There were complications afterward, but complications is not something that they can guarantee that will never happen. So we lived through that, 100,000 in medical bills, and still a heart full of gratitude in an acute situation. We need medical professionals. There are a lot of well-meaning doctors. There are a lot of great surgeons. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about chronic conditions and the general track record of the medical industry. Generally speaking, the medical industry cannot and should not be trusted. And if you choose to trust them, it is up to you to do due diligence research and make educated decisions and to tap out all of your natural resources before going to an extreme and subjecting your body and your health and your family to the possibility of losing your life quality or maybe even your life. Quite a heavy episode after 2 months of me being absent, isn't it? But I know that this is the right thing for the right time, as millions of people right now are making a daily decision about medication, surgeries, and as it stands right now about COVID vaccinations. If you're considering a COVID vaccine, it is your responsibility to do an in-depth research outside of what you will find on the websites of the pharmaceutical companies that are selling those drugs. It is up to you to leaf through all the information you can find online to consider the pros and the cons before making a decision that will affect you for the rest of your life. Now, vaccines is not the reason I'm doing this podcast. I'm doing this podcast to give power back into your hands. Whether it's a vaccine, a medication, or a surgery that you're considering, it is absolutely up to you to say, do I want to go the what seemingly is an easy route and just take the pill or cut out a body part, or do I want to take my part in my healing process and do the work, find out the root cause of my health issues, address them, and maybe I would never have to consider an extreme medical intervention at all. Hippocrates once said that it is far more important to know what person the disease has than what disease the person has. All of us develop diseases for many reasons. I personally had uncovered over 18 root causes of what might cause chronic illnesses such as hyper and hypothyroidism, Graves' disease, Hashimoto's, endometriosis, PCOS, infertility, and so on. And I do not ever work with a client until we uncover the root cause of the problem. And only then do we create a plan of action specific to them that will help them to completely resolve their problem once and for all. It was also Hippocrates who said that the natural force within each of us is the greatest force in getting well. And I believe that that natural force is the knowledge of the root cause of our illnesses, and then finding natural means to resolving it once and for all. So today, at the end of this episode, I'm going to share some amazing news with you. While I was deeply quiet for the last 2 months, there was a reason. For the last half a year, I've been developing my own app. It is called 360 Degree Life. It is a very private community by invitation only app, where I'm making my wisdom and knowledge available, the very wisdom that I use working with my clients one-on-one that has helped us to achieve over 95% success rate to an everyday health seeker. Inside of the app, there are many, many benefits. I will link to them in the description of this podcast, but here are some just to mention a few. One of the biggest things is the 360 degree foundation course that I normally, if I teach a workshop, would charge upward of $800 to $900 for. I share it absolutely free of charge as a part of the app membership. Inside of that 8-part health course, here's what you, the health seeker, would learn. In first part, you will learn how to detox your mind from the confusion that you accumulated by following unproven health protocols and bad advice. And that includes the kind of bad medical advice that we just covered. This also includes all of the confusing books and blog articles that you've read and podcasts that you've heard that got you to nowhere. Then you get empowered by me as I teach you how to create a winning mindset so that you can achieve your permanent health once and for all. In part number 2, I actually walk you step by step through the process of detoxing bad medical advice, some of which we just touched on just a little bit today. In part number 3, I teach you about detoxing your meds, working hand in hand with your doctors, and getting your doctors to be on your team working for you as opposed to against you. In key number 4, we take a deep dive into detoxing your supplements because much like the medical field, the natural, what we consider a natural field, has been largely polluted by bad science. In part number 5, we uncover the root causes of your illness and you get empowered to not only identify them, but to create a plan to address them naturally. In part number 6, I give you the keys to adapt the best healing diet that will be specific to your health condition. And in key number 7 and 8, we give you the tools and empower you to create permanent success so that once you're in the know of what's making you sick, you can also address it once and for all. Now, this is only 1/10, a drop in the bucket of what you would get when you would join the 360 Life app. Inside of the app, we have a thriving international community of health seekers that is private. You get supported by your peers and by the best in the business, my coaches, who are going to support you through the process and provide you with the accountability that you will need in order to implement the plan that you will develop under our guidance in order to get yourself well. Every other week, my coaches go live and cover important transformative health topics that give you further education and support. And of course, I'm in that community as well, supporting you every step of the way. You can go to our website at 360degreeimpacthealth.com/app to see all of the benefits that you will get by being a part of this amazing app and the community. The most amazing thing is that this app will take you away from the noise and the toxicity of social media platforms. We will be there in your hand, on desktop, and your mobile devices on tap. So if you are sick and tired of being treated as an idiot and being taken advantage of by the medical industry, and you want to be empowered to find your truth, to find your way, and be given the tools that have worked for thousands of women and men from around the world, I invite you to go ahead and visit the page www.360impacthealth.com/app. Go through the list of all of the benefits and then join the app. And right now, as we're celebrating the release of the app, we're running a special to where you can test drive the app for an entire week, no strings attached, taking advantage of all of the benefits to ensure your satisfaction. Well, that is it for me for today, my friend. I hope that you gleaned a lot from this podcast and that you understand your rightful place in writing your story of health and healing. I will be back next week as we cover more important topics and empower you to become the creator of your health and your life. This is Elena Isolde Medici signing off and wishing you a fantastic rest of the day. But before I do, I'm going to ask you one thing. If you are enjoying this podcast, and I hope that you are, please spread the word and share it with your friends, your acquaintances, your Facebook, your Twitter friends, your family members, and we would love to get a 5-star rating from you in your favorite podcasting platform. So whether it's Google Play, iTunes, or anything else, please head on over to wherever you're subscribing and give us a 5-star review so more people can be exposed to the Health Wizard podcast and get the tools that they need in order to achieve permanent health once and for all. Have a fantastic rest of the day. I'll see you next week. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed today's topic. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the Health Wizard podcast. And please don't forget to tell others about it. If you would like to get more information about me and what I do, how I help amazing human beings just like you to achieve their dream health, go to www.360impacthealth.com. Go to the contact page and shoot me a note. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you on the next episode of the Health Wizard podcast. This is your host, Yelena, wishing you optimal natural health.